How high can Bitcoin go? Where is Bitcoin going to be at the end of May? When you sell in May and go away, is it May 2nd or May 29th? And if so, at what prices? Stay tuned for GAN Overtime, where we tell you where it's going, when it's going there, in our opinion. Let's welcome who's on the stream. We have Willamita from East Tennessee, Daniel, Richard Barry from Georgia, welcome. Alexandra wants to know when Lambo. I'll help tell you that. Okay, Kennedy is here, welcome. Jeff, Brick Dreams, Semper Fidelis, King with the Notorious Love, Sydney AUS, Alexandro, GLDN Block 47. Very exciting news for the emerging asset group. Block 47, where the New York City Diamond District and Jewelry Market goes on chain, meaning if you have assets on chain like ETH, you don't have to cash out into a bank, okay, in order to go buy jewelry and diamonds. And I've even got some timeliness as to when the diamond market might be at, peak FOMO or FOMO periods for diamonds over the next year. We talked about that on the Gold Retriever Twitter space earlier today. Okay, let's go to the news. Okay, Brazil is calling for an end to dollar dominance. Let's talk about why BRICS countries, really outside of the direct enemies of the United States like China and Russia, want off the dollar. Okay. Our monetary policy essentially dictates what the economies and currencies of these countries do, right? So if we lower rates to zero and print money and create inflation, they experience inflation. If we jam on the brakes and raise rates, right, to 5% and the dollar skyrockets and their currency collapses, you can understand how they would be over it. Over it. Now, this guy's on the left. I understand what they're saying. I think the most important thing to remember about the dollar is that the smartest person I know in the market is noticing that money flowing into the United States, which is normally used to buy treasury bonds, isn't coming, right? Demand for dollars is falling. So whether or not people use dollars to do commodity transactions, yes, that's been out there in the legacy market for a long time. Yes, the media has picked it up. Yes, everybody's jumping on this bandwagon. The real issue is the value of the dollar. Demand for the dollar is falling, and not for the reasons that the media says it is. Okay. U.S. Energy Secretary signals a plan to rebuild oil reserve. Well, we're not pumping oil, and we declined to buy it from the Saudis at 70 or 80-ish. So I guess we're going to wind up paying 100 or 102. The current administration doesn't really care what you pay for gas over the summer. All I can say is hashtag Bitcoin. Okay. Inflation eased to its lowest level in nearly 2 years during March. So food is probably still going up. Meat is probably still going up. Gasoline is probably a function of what's going on with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Rents are up because nobody can afford to buy a house, and the price of everything else is tanking. Simple as that. Go to a cool barbecue restaurant yesterday for lunch, 12 noon. Expect the line to be out the door. Empty. Nobody can afford meat. Okay. So this is going to create demand destruction. This is going to bring down inflation. And these fools are continuing to tighten. And we're starting to see stuff on Twitter about what the bill is on our $31 trillion in debt. Not to mention the fact that big banks make deposits at the Fed. So the higher the Fed hikes rates, the more they have to pay the banks that deposit money there. So inflation is not only going to come down, they're probably going to break the system, which is why people are buying Bitcoin. BlackRock, Fidelity, whoever, they're just like, oh yeah, let's just get Bitcoin below 30K, or we'll pay 30, so we don't have to pay 60. And if it goes back down to 28 or whatever, well, okay, great, we'll buy it. We'll be happy. And I'm starting to think, looking at this price action, like when I, did a little work about where this thing could go, like where do you sell in May? I was like, oh my God, like the 34K target may be too conservative. Okay. Twitter partners with eToro to trade stocks and crypto. I don't know why everybody is doubting Elon Musk. I don't understand it. Shanghai upgrade is complete. So here's what's going on in ETH. The title of the stream is about ETH. All right. Everybody got short like they did for the merge, and they're getting squeezed out. If you had a lot of money, if you had a lot of ETH to sell, right, you would bid it up. If I had to sell $5 billion worth of ETH, I'm not going to just sell that at the market. There's no liquidity. You would get a pump going. Squeeze out every single short in ETH. Just squeeze them out. And then retail will come flying in thinking it's going to 2,200. And that's when you sell. Or that's when you move from ETH to Bitcoin. So, I mean, it makes sense that, ETH would gap up like this. Now, I didn't think that was going to be the case, right? I still believe in massive Bitcoin outperformance. But again, don't fade ETH. And we're going to go through the big altcoins because I'm looking at this going, oh my God. If Bitcoin extends this rally into May, we got to start asking ourselves, how high can this go? Okay. Okay, Doge. We're going to cover this later in TA. Okay, Doge up 6% as people contemplate Musk's next move. I mean, Musk is obviously going to put AI and crypto together. And you know what? So's Amazon, right? Because they've got their platform, Bedrock, that they're going to release. These Silicon Valley people are not going to be outdone. This is the biggest story that no one's talking about. Uniswap wallet goes live on Apple. Okay. The Solana phone is coming. I was talking about the Solana phone, to be honest with you, when Solana was like $10. This Solana phone is going to force Web2 to get crypto on their phones, or they can all disappear. Okay. I want to see this. Texas Senate passes a bill to limit Bitcoin miners' participation in demand response to programs. Okay. The Texas Senate passed a bill that will cap how much Bitcoin miners can participate until they get paid to curtail their operations at times of high energy demand. Okay. So it's unbelievable that even in the state of Texas, they're trying to FUD Bitcoin. It's just not going to work. It's not going to work. ECB says there's further to go on rate increases. Well, these guys always get started late, and they are always tightening as things are rolling over. I don't have the chart handy, but these guys were tightening as NASDAQ was just rolling over and collapsing in 2000. Okay, so, if we're going to have a recession, if if things are going to fall out of bed, or there's going to be a black swan, like a collapse in treasuries or whatever it is, because there will be something. There will be something in June, and there is most likely going to be something in September and October, especially on the geopolitical front. These guys will be tightening into that. Again, hashtag Bitcoin. Okay, I'm going to PowerPoint. A lot of people asking for altcoin overtime. I'm just going to kind of pump it out right now, and I'm going to do Gann overtime as well. Tax time. I get a phone call from my daughter today. She's like, I got to do my taxes. I'm like, I've been texting you about this for a month. ProBitcoinSolutions.com/Noble. These guys do Bitcoin forensics. Every coin you have, it's only $20 per chain versus $40. Trust me, working with these guys, it's half the cost. The link is down below. Dollar. Okay, we got to talk about the dollar. I cannot possibly think. I don't know if I could be any more bearish on anything. I swear to God. Everybody was in love with this at 111. Everybody wanted to buy the dip at 102. And it's just a miserably failed rally. Okay. So this rally took about 17 weeks. Okay. To go from, like 93 to 103. So if we go from 103 to the hidden pivot target of 91, and it takes 17 weeks, that's July 23rd. And that's in line with kind of what I was thinking of, buy in July and let it fly. Right. The dollar is going to unwind the entire rally from last year. And I don't think anyone's talking about it that way. I really don't. No one is talking about it that way. All right, let's talk about Bitcoin. So yesterday was the 13 top. No one cares. Resistance is at 32K. Sometimes when you get a 13 top, you get like an additional extension. I'm showing at least 4 more up days, like this hybrid solar eclipse on April 20th. Like I'm starting to think that that's going to be even bigger than I thought it was when I did some ChatGPT Gann stuff today. I'm like, yeah, I figured this thing was going to go to 34K and stop. Maybe that happens. Okay. Maybe it's selling early May and go away, but damn, I mean, when you see this research later, 4 more up days, I think everyone is underestimating what this market can do into the solar eclipse on the 20th, because this solar eclipse is going to result in the eventual destruction of legacy. And it's going to bring big players in because they didn't get it below 30, and they're going to try to get it as close to 30 as they can. And once they start piling in, I don't think they're going to care. The difference between 32 and 34 is they're not going to care. Okay, Solana. The Solana phone's coming out. It broke through 23.25. If you do hidden pivot analysis on this can go to 27. And I think with what ETH did today, you got to ask yourself, first Bitcoin was kind of going to be the destroyer, right? But if Bitcoin is the tide that lifts all boats, these big altcoins have massively underperformed, right? ETH. So 2034 is an obvious resistance point. Believe that might have been the merge top. So I'm showing on DeMark, you could have 5 more up days. You've got a 13 top and a 9 top, and no one cares. So you could wind up with another 9 top in 5 days. But, it seems obvious that ETH is going to try to take out 2034. If for no other reason that anybody who has to sell needs to ram it through there to create a liquidity event. They need to take advantage of whatever's going on in Bitcoin to just ram ETH higher. And personally, I think if anyone sells off the merge, I suspected they were going to go into Bitcoin. Okay. That to me feels like that seems more likely. It seems more like ETH 2100 something. I can definitely see that. Of course, I hope ETH smokes. Like I was like, I would be the happiest person in the whole world if you came on the stream and said, Bill, you're an idiot for missing ETH going to 3K. So is ETH back? Yeah, it's back, but you don't know if the big sellers are out there. Now, kudos, as Novigrad said, to the ETH community for not just turning around and selling everything at the market. But why would they? Especially in front of the eclipse with Bitcoin trading so well. You wouldn't sell it now. You would bid it up so you could sell it if you were going to sell it. Hey, just as a reminder on ETH Monthly, we're on like month 3 of a multi-month uptrend. Okay, normally you get the dip next month. You may get the dip next month, or this could have been the dip when ETH went down earlier. So, that's a nice way of saying bigger picture, ETH is okay, and I don't want to over nuance the TA. Now, back to Bitcoin. Bitcoin miners forming a base, hut mining, taking out 214. I got a hidden pivot target at 3. That's what's up over here. 3. So can this thing go from 2 to 3? Yeah, this stuff is all under, like it hasn't participated with Bitcoin, which to me means people don't believe it. They just don't believe this. Now, MicroStrategy is more believable because of the amount of Bitcoin that they hold, with Bitcoin trading through its average price. So it seems logical that this would attack its August high at 372. It's August high at 372. Now, I don't know. Gold Retriever, GLDN, we're just sitting, we're just waiting. Because this gold thing is not going to stop. Right? This going to 2136. That's the hidden pivot target. Gold is ignoring all these negative divergences. It just sits there and it just turns around and keeps going up. This is like torment. Like people fighting this, trying to short it. Boom. And this is a reminder that on the gold chart, larger picture, there is a huge teacup and handle formation, and gold is clearly on an uptrend. It is over for the dollar. It is done. And just as a reminder, as long as gold and silver are trading well, ETH can trade well. I mean, I would argue the rally in gold is a bigger reason why ETH is up. I mean, I know there's Shanghai gymnastics with ETH, but ETH is not going down when gold and silver are going down. I'm sorry, ETH is not going down with gold and silver going up based on statistical research that I've done in the past. So if you're new, I didn't do it. An economist who used to work at UBS did it, right? Metals, grains higher, ETH higher. Bitcoin. So I actually drew this Fibonacci, extension analysis. I'm sorry, Fibonacci fib speed retracement analysis. You have the bigger the base, the higher in the space. This thing broke out, right? The Williams oscillator gave you that hint. And the next line is at 34. Now, I was of the opinion that, 34 was like the moon boy target in Bitcoin. Okay. When I plug some planetary movements into ChatGPT, I got a whole different Gann read. So this hybrid solar eclipse, the effect of this, the positive effect on crypto could continue into May. It could. So last year, sell in May and go away meant sell in April. This year, sell in May and go away may mean selling at the end of May at crazy, ridiculous prices. Above 34. Okay, Solana we did. Okay, XRP. Williams oscillator is close to 0. This could be a flag pattern. Obviously, it's having trouble breaking resistance. But can you imagine? Just think about it in reverse. Everybody says, well, what will XRP break out? It looks like it can. My question is, what happens if XRP does break out? What happens if XRP rallies in Gary Gensler's face? Like, think about it. Like, what's the reason to not buy altcoins? Oh, it's regulation. I mean, regulation, these guys are going to try to push the market. Don't get me wrong. But what happens if XRP rallies in their face? I mean, that's like license to ill. That's like license to go crazy in altcoins. So it's almost like Yeah, ETH does lead, but if XRP ever broke out, then, you're going to have the whole rest of the space following Bitcoin. Okay, Avalanche. Okay, so this is a 3-day chart. This is like a bigger picture. 20 is a big level. This has done nothing, which I can't believe. Security tokens, Amazon, all these people in the news. I don't see why this can't go to 20. And if it goes to 20, and you get like a moon boy target in May, it's 26. And again, this has done nothing. Nothing. So back to XRP. The daily chart of XRP is showing XRP is now kind of on a 4. So these are DeMark signals. Tom DeMark was the original quant technical analyst. Okay. He used something called the sequential system to measure trends and when it would reverse. These green numbers represent the potential start of a trend. The numbers come from a set of conditions being true, like the high of the day is higher than the high 2 days ago, something like that. Okay. Normally, when you start the trend, you get a dip around the 4. It usually goes to a 9. So the first part of a trend will have 9 up bars. You usually get a dip around the 4. Looks like there was a dip in XRP yesterday, and that was your dip. So XRP could go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? Doge is the same thing. Like you just broke out above a major DeMark resistance point here. You came back down, retested it. You ran some stops. Okay. You might get one more dip on a 4 in Doge. This could be off to the races. And heaven forbid, this sort of the dip in the trend was that dip on Tuesday. You get a dip in this thing, you got to seriously think about this, because I have no idea why everybody is underestimating what Elon Musk can do, particularly if he turns Austin, Texas into a crypto city. I mean, consensus is going to be in Austin in 2 weeks. I mean, that's when Musk would make the big announcement if there is one. Okay. Okay. Near, right, up at 235. That's where the resistance is. This is the perfect looking dip on the 4. So if this is a base in near and 4 is the dip, anybody who's holding out for a further rally in near, I would say continue to hold out. I would say continue to hold out, right? Galaxy Digital. Okay, so check this out. The orange is Bitcoin. The candle chart is that of Galaxy Digital, a crypto hedge fund run by Mike Novogratz, the stock of the hedge fund. You have a complex head and shoulders bottom. You have a break of the neckline. You have something that looks like bump and run. Okay. And then how is Galaxy Digital not following? How is Galaxy Digital not following Bitcoin? No one believes in this move, right? Like people are fading this move in crypto. They're fading the move in crypto. Okay, Polkadot.
Excuse me, sir. I'm here to do your pest control.
Polkadot. Check out Polkadot versus Bitcoin. Polkadot has literally done nothing. It's breaking out above 6, above this fib speed resistance line. I mean, Bitcoin can go so far before big coins like this have to catch up. It's funny. Big banks, Citibank, BlackRock, they're talking about $4 trillion in tokenized assets. All that stuff is going to move around on Avalanche and Polkadot. So stuff is catching fire here. I don't understand how Polkadot could not go up, particularly if you consider the hybrid solar eclipse, right? You may get one dip at the start in May, but then, sell in May may be at the end of May. Okay, Cosmos. Cosmos is up 5% today. That's a lot, right? Well, it's breaking above the hidden pivot line, which I didn't label. So it's just really a robust breakout. I mean, Cosmos has been going down as Bitcoin has been going up. 1378. I think you got to start using your imagination in altcoins, given the fact that ETH doesn't care about the merge rally. Now, GAN overtime. So, you want to get crazy? You want to get wild? Let's get wild, right? Hybrid solar eclipse per GAN's work. Major societal shifts, wars, shifts tectonically, financial crises. The banking system is done. We know this. And so does everybody who's buying Bitcoin. Except there's this slow creep higher. And as we've said, no one believes it. So the question is, using GAN's work and ChatGPT, how can we forecast where Bitcoin could go if it gets nuts in May? Like, in other words, what's the moonshot target in Bitcoin? Right? In other words, what happens if Bitcoin just goes and goes and goes and goes? So I'm not saying that, other coins won't follow. If anything, this research is going to make you look at Polkadot or Cosmos up 3 or 4%. And it may make you go, well, gee, who cares if this is what can really happen, right? So GAN used biblical numerology to find important dates and cycles for market. He also used astrology to find planetary influences and correlations with price movements. He believed everything moved in cycles and patterns. One example was that GAN was very big on the number 7, which just, happens to be a big number in the Bible, both Old and New Testament. Okay. So he had religious meaning for the number 7. He used multiples of 7, 14, 21, 28. Okay. He also used 3, 9, and 12, depending on the context in the market. Now that's that's like your GAN fact of the day. So we started putting up astrology events for May, said, okay, basically how would GAN look at this? How would GAN approach it if the trend in Bitcoin was bigger than we thought, right? And then ChatGPT does its own kind of TA, and this is what we came up with. So Mars is conjunct Pluto. That's astrology jargon for there's some sort of interaction between Mars and Pluto in the chart of how you plot where planets are in the universe. So Mars walks into a bar, Pluto says, how you doing? What happens thereafter? Well, you either get a sudden surge in price or a plunge in price. Okay. It can also signify a transformation or a crisis. Now, part of me is wondering whether or not post-eclipse FOMO takes institutions are forced to buy at the end of the month, and then you get a dip in early May. So, pressure on me. When's the next dip? Maybe it's May 2nd. May 4th, the new moon in Taurus, meaning in a certain section of space. Here's another way to look at this. Planets are like actors on a stage. Each actor wears a costume signifying their role. So each actor or each planet can influence different things, right? And then, of course, the actors and their costumes, or the actors and the things that they influence, move around the stage. So when you see new moon in Taurus, the actor that plays the new moon has moved around the stage. And what does that mean based on GAN's theories? Okay, it's a time of new beginnings and opportunities. Taurus is an earth sign valuing stability and security. Anybody out there thinks stability and security in the banking system? Stability and security may be in crypto. By the way, it's pretty funny, right? Does anybody remember, like, Do Kwon and Luna and FTX and how that was the end of crypto. It's pretty funny, right? Now it's stability and security, right? Taurus is also impacts money and resources. So since Bitcoin is often considered digital gold and a store of value, this aspect or this, alignment on the astrology stage may favor Bitcoin. ChatGPT does its own little TA, and it's coming up with 36K. Okay, so I had 34, and I thought I was a moon boy, and these guys this thing has 36. Venus in a relationship with Jupiter on May 10th. Okay, in Gann research I've seen before, Venus was connected to cryptocurrency values. I know for a fact Venus does impact diamond values, which is great for the new venture Block 47, which is going to change a lot in the world in terms of alternative assets. So Venus, diamonds in crypto, Jupiter, the planet of expansion. I saw something yesterday in ChatGPT said Jupiter rules New York. So if it gets really wild with Venus and Jupiter, 40K is possible. And a lot of people are talking about 40K. I mean, it's not like some outlandish, stupid number. Now, 40K by May 10th, that is crazy. But, if you spit out, here are the astrological events that are relevant for May, expand on that analysis, assume Bitcoin is at 30K, assume ETH is at 2,000. Where can Bitcoin be on certain dates in May? And it picked the dates, did TA, and gave me the prices. Now, let's talk about the top. May 18th, full moon in Scorpio. I'm Scorpio. Scorpio implies, or the full moon in Scorpio implies culmination and completion. Okay. Intensity and transformation. It also, according to ChatGPT, rules Bitcoin according to some astrologers. So a couple of levels for blow off tops. 45K. This could be a possible target for a bullish buying climax. Can you imagine if sell in May and go away was selling at 45K? This would just kill people. So kill people, right? I mean, at 45K, they'd be talking about 100. And I had 34K, and I was like, wow, I'm a moon boy. I don't think so. Especially if you look at you just do the Gann work. It's sell at the end of May and go away. Then if it's not May 18th, it's possible a range for Bitcoin at the end of the month between 41 and 57. 41 and 57. So again, this is ChatGPT doing things like fib extension work. It's kind of doing it on its own, but it is identifying these legit planetary alignments like full moon in Scorpio. It fits in the Gann analysis, and then it starts to do calculations. Okay, so that is the market update. Okay, let's see if there's still anybody left in the chat. If everyone's just left and said, Bill, you're out of your mind. Spin is here, Mr. Moby Dick, talking about inflation in Europe. Okay, Thomas is here. Okay. Okay, Mark is giving you a little bit of Mark is giving you a little bit of color there on Mars and Pluto. Okay. Jeff, May 10th is your birthday. Welcome. Got 100 messages in the chat. King says, who's looking at near? I did. I just did it. Matt said, how's Galaxy looking? I covered that. No, Galaxy and the Bitcoin miners are telling you people do not believe this rally. They do not. Justin is still here. Okay. M Crypto, BitBoy Al, welcome. Okay. Aiken with some notorious love. I appreciate that. The Crypto Clan, Shizzy DeFi, Bart, welcome. Okay. Somebody says the spiral calendar says May 20th is the BTC top. I have a spiral calendar book. That's the guy, or that's the research that would indicate, some sort of major equity market event or a geopolitical event in October. Some of the ChatGPT work that I did suggested, based on Gann work, you could have a 9/11 style event in September. People are not stupid, right? People know this whole thing with the banking system, commercial real estate, the Fed, the insolvency of the treasury market. It's almost like the doom and gloom is exhausting. And people just don't want to hear it. So, I got 2 videos where, I found a really unique person who actually knows astrology and crypto in a different way. And we're actually working, believe it or not, with tarot cards, because astrology will give you the big picture, but tarot cards can help give you timing, particularly if you work with somebody who knows what they're doing. Now, yes, there is some voodoo element in that. There's some voodoo element. However, you have to remember that I came from a generation where technical analysts were like, we were considered kind of the crazy guys who read tea leaves. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were the mysterious, weird guys. Like, every financial textbook says technical analysis doesn't work. Every single one. I got admitted to the executive MBA program at the University of Texas because the director wanted to see what the finance professors would say when there was a technical analyst sitting in a classroom. No joke. I was like the second youngest guy in the program. So technical analysts are used to doing very outside the box thing. Now, in crypto, everybody has got trading view. So the view of TA has changed. It's changed. However, my desire to go way outside the box with Gann analysis and things related to Gann analysis, because I think I can help line up timing based on what I would call confluence. So I'm not going to make a trading decision based on an outside the box system like tarot cards, but today's research started with this. So, I took the deck of cards. Okay. I bought tattoo art tarot cards to be cool. I took the cards, split them up in three, split the deck 3 times. Just, pick the card off whichever one I felt good. And today's tarot card was the Hanging Man, which I called the Hanging Person. Okay. So that's the artwork for that. They're making it a lot nicer than the Hanging Man. And it says a challenge. And then I say, hey, what does this mean for me? I'm an analyst in the crypto market. There's an uptrend. Should I get all pumped up and excited, or should I chill out? So this is ChatGPT getting information about me, my job, right? What's going on in the crypto market? And then what should I do? What does it mean if we assume the uptrend continues? Also mentioning the hybrid solar eclipse. Like, how should I approach it? And it says today's card reading is this card. It challenges me to let go of my ego and see Bitcoin from a new perspective. Will it surprise me during the eclipse? ChatGPT wrote that. So I'm like, whoa, shit. Maybe I better find out what's going on in May. Maybe I better find out what's going on in May. It would be pretty stupid if I was like, oh, this hybrid solar eclipse is bullish, bullish, bullish. I've been saying that for 2 months. And then it goes to 45K and I never mentioned it. So that's how I started my day. Now, is that crazy? Yeah, maybe. But you know, I'm not opposed to crazy. I'm a technical analyst. Okay, Cardano. So challenging the high, right? There's the 4. So this dip that you had today, like, it's probably not even discernible. Okay, I was talking about this yesterday. So, I mean, if you look at a short-term tactical view, there was support at 41 cents. There's a lot of reason to believe that this was the top when it rushed up. But sometimes in these uptrends, like the bearish candlestick is the dip. Now, you probably got one more push up. Again, this is very short-term in Cardano. Okay, but these candlesticks where you get these big dips, like it looks like a top, but it may not be. It may not be. You know, and if you're looking at this Cardano chart on the weekly, I can't believe it's not going to test 46 cents. Like, I mean, how can I at least bring up the possibility? I mean, not being an absurd moon boy, how can I bring up the possibility of Bitcoin at 45K? Like, Bitcoin could go to 34 and leave altcoins in the dust. But if Bitcoin's going way higher than that, right? Cardano's going to go above 46 cents. King wants to know if Chainlink dead. I think Chainlink is software used to buy services. I mean, it's currency used to buy software services. So there is resistance at $7.58. Chainlink has been forming a base for a long time. I mean, when I look at this, like, I don't think you're going to make a gazillion dollars in Chainlink today, but if this ever broke out of this base, it would go a lot higher because of the bigger the base, the higher in the space, but it has to demonstrate that it can do it. Now, you could have 5 more up days in Chainlink because just about every altcoin looks like this. Okay. Microsoft loves Chainlink, according to Mark. Okay. And this brings up another point. Web 2 is going to buy Web 3. They're going to buy Web 3. I mean, Consensus in Austin is coming up, I don't know, I want to say in 5 days. Right? I'm asking ChatGPT right now. If I was anybody, Musk, right? All these people, Web 2, if I had something that I was going to drop on the market to try to get it going, I would announce it at Consensus. Consensus starts April 26th. So last year, Consensus was in June. And I mean, that was right before the Celsius debacle. Like, my Consensus Wall Street war story was I listened to Edward Snowden come out and criticize Bitcoin for not having a privacy function. And I walked out of that room and I'm like, oh my God, this is going down. It's just one of those moments where you're just like, oh shit. And this thing just tanked. Right? This year, you could wind up with the opposite effect because of the hybrid solar eclipse. Okay? Okay, someone's asking about audio. You know, look, folks, I'm not going to tell you that your altcoin's not going to make it, but not every altcoin's going to make it. So you have the base, right? And can you have alt mania when this is all about Bitcoin? I mean, Audius has got the whole music angle, right? There's Gala Games, which I brought up. mean, there will probably be a week. So the good news is Gala is above resistance, but it's just sort of sitting on that resistance, which is okay. It's okay. I mean, the DeMarc work isn't spectacular one way or the other on the daily chart. The weekly chart is not spectacular either. Let's go to a 4-hour chart. Okay, so the good news is, Gala is above its previous fourth wave. If that's what this is, let me just check. Okay, that wasn't a previous fourth wave, but it is a prior high. So if you look at the way this is set up on a 4-hour chart, Gala rushes up, takes out resistance, comes back down, and there's this huge battle going on. And this doji candlestick may be representative of a stalemate. So you got to be careful in these altcoins. First I was like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to go up and destroy everything. That's possible. But if ETH is holding up post-Shanghai, you got to start asking yourselves if these altcoins can have a decent May. If the old system is going to melt down, at least at a minimum around consensus, right? I mean, it's really hard to speculate in these really small coins, come up with some sort of roadmap. But I don't think I'd be fading altcoins or giving up on small altcoins in front of consensus. Okay. Heartbreaker, Zcash. Snowden is speaking at consensus again. He was a signer on the Zcash white paper. I just find it so hard to believe that Bitcoin can rally the way it has, and Zcash hasn't moved. Now, Zcash is up 5% today, but this whole theme about privacy, alternative assets, diamonds, Bitcoin, gold, privacy coins. I mean, how is anybody going to do a transaction in the metaverse? And what happens if the government just loses its mind and starts coming after your money? Right? Seriously, what happens if they lose it? Right? You're going to need a privacy coin. Right? DYDX, my favorite consensus event from last year. I think one thing with DYDX that maybe you got to ask yourself, because it's nice to impose, superimpose Bitcoin on these charts of altcoins, is crypto trading dead? Maybe Americans can't trade crypto, but other people can. Okay. Don't give up on crypto. If you're long, it may pay to be a pig. There's a lot of people that don't believe in this rally. I don't recommend that thought process. I recommend believing in crypto. And I think you have to start asking yourself, can Bitcoin go much higher than anyone thinks? Stay tuned for more market updates. I'm Bill Noble. We'll see you next time. We're going over to